This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Nun Gimel, and with Purim behind us, Pesach on the horizon. B'siyat Dishmaya, we go back to beginning the fifth parak, the parak of Kol HaMenachos, which we started in the previous year, and we'll pick it up from today. Also, B'siyat Dishmaya, we will try to be getting back on track, having the shiurim up a day or two in advance. Emirtza Hashem. Finally, in the coming days, we're going to begin recording not only the current daf, but the summer daf Yemi. So if anyone has any yard sites or any reasons they like to partner in the schos of spreading Torah for any of the upcoming days, the days of Shavuos, of course, and most notably going forwards into the summer, the months of Tammuz and Av, June, July, August, please reach out. So let's begin the parak once again. Kol HaMenachos Ba'is Matzah. We begin with an incredible yesod, one that by now hopefully we understand, in which all the karban menachos have to be brought matzah, unleavened. Chutz mechametz shebetaida. The karban taida is allowed to have chametz and ushtei alechem shein ba'is chametz. Rabbi Meir oimer as sa'ar ba'ida lehen mitaychan. So now we have a problem, because when you bring a piece of bread, it needs to have a way to rise. So how do you get it to rise? So you put in sar, you put in sourdough, literally, and that allows and hastens the rising process. Says Rabbi Meir, you take this R from within the requisite quantity of whichever carbon you're bringing, and you do not add in any sar. Why not? Because if you add any sar, it's going to be more than the requisite shear that the carbon is supposed to be, and that allows it to turn, that allows it to leaven to the necessary amount. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afiyeno min hamochretz right. Maybe as Arvin Naisa Latechamidam. Says Rabbi Yehuda, bring this bring some extra sourdough, and put it inside the midah, put it inside a clear vessel, and then fill it up. So whatever quantity of flour you have to bring, you're not going to problem. What's the problem if you add in sar? That we're worried you're going to have extra. Says the Gemara, you're not going to have extra. Let's just use the number of a cup, 8 ounces. So let's say you're going to have a cup of measurement. So first put in the sar. First put in the amount of the extra, and then put in the requisite, and then you'll equal your precise measurement. Responds the Chacham to Rabbi Yehuda, no. Even if you do it that way, it's either going to be a little bit too little, a little bit too much. Why? Because it all rises, and therefore we have to be concerned either you're going to put in too little or too much. So we begin the Gemara with the Shaila Ba'i Minera Preda Meravami. Menayan the Chol HaMenachos in Ba'is Matzah Minon D'chsev Ba. Says the Gemara, Minalan D'chsev Ba. It says by it. Ksiv Ba. It says explicitly. To like Ksiv Ba, Ksiv Ba. The place where it's Mefurash is Mefurash. The like Ksiv Ba, and regarding a mincha where it is not Mefurash, then Ksiv Ba. It says the following psukim in regarding to those that are abnormal as follows. Says the Gemara on the top of the Gimel of an Aleph. What's the mikar? Zois Tairas HaMincha HaKevaisa B'nei Aroin Lefnei Hashem B'nei HaMizbeach V'nei Seres Mimenu Yoichlo Aronu Ba'anav. That is the pasuk. For this pasuk, we see that all karban mincha are all coming and treated equally, and therefore they all have to be made out of matzah. So why do we need our makar? Says the Gemara, one of mazayachal amrlei mitzvah lekavi balei. You're not asking for the mitzvah, ki la'akev, but rather ki balei is the akev. If it's something that's ikar, something that is integral or not. Says the Gemara. Amar le lakiv namiksiv. It even says lakiv. Loishav chametz elo matzah. Says the Torah, don't bring it as chametz. Which applies, it has to be brought as a matzah. So we see a requisite pasuk teaching us such. Maskler Rav Chisda Say that what can be baked as chametz, but it can be baked as se'ar, completely unleavened, no chametz at all. So why are you telling me there's some level of chametz necessarily? Says the Gemara, se'ar diman. Says the Gemara, whose se'ar does Rav Chisda refer to? Either the Rameir, the Yehuda Matzmali, either Yehuda, the Rameir Chametz Maliyahu. So there's no way to find the middle ground. They're arguing in both extremes. So whose sar is it? Either Rameir, the Rameir Madigli Chametz. If you're telling me it's the sar of Rameir that it's turned pale, but then the problem is that what? Excuse me. Either of Yehuda. No, I skipped a line. One more time, I'm sorry. Seyor Diman, where are we? Rav Yehuda Matzav Al Yehi. Either Rav Yehuda, Rameir Chametz Mal Yehi, Rameir. They tell me it's the star of Rameir, and he's going according to Rameir. Midalaki Alei Chametz. There it is. That you get Malchus for eating such dough. So Rameir holds it's Chametz. So what is going on over here? Ela de Rav Yehuda. Rather, says the Gemara, it must be the star of Rav Yehuda. And it's going according to the opinion of Rav Yehuda that it's not chametz and it's not matzah. So says the Gemara. So now we know Rav Chisda's kasha that the pasuk that Rav Ami says does not show us that only matzah is kosher, but rather the sa'ar is kosher as well. Maskevla Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. As Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak as well. 1 second. Yeah, it's a little bit less of a glare. I apologize. So Maskevla Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Ve'ima leisi afe chametz elo cholot. Maybe when the pasuk says leisi afe chametz, but refers to what? Or refers to cholot that has to be scalded in boiling water. Says the Gemara, cholot maninu. What is cholot? Revicha. Cholot means similar to revicha. That what do you have to do? That similar to it's a process that was done by certain of the Menachos. So says the Gemara by the Minchas Chavita particularly. Idik Ravicha Ksiba Ravicha. V'oloi Ksiba. Says Gemara, I don't understand. If it's about Ravicha, then it says Ravicha. And over here, v'oloi Ksiba Ravicha. So what is going on over here? Ve'ema says the Gemara Ksiba Ravicha. Mitzvah Ravicha. Maybe. Where the Torah says Ravicha, that's what it has to be. Utaloik Siva Ravicha, maybe it's an option. That which it doesn't say Ravicha, says the Gemara, perhaps it's optional. Ibai Ravicha Lacey, Ibai Matzah Lacey. Maybe it could be either way. So Maskala Ravina. One last kasha. Veima, and perhaps lo shavi chametz lemikim gavra belav ve'alma. Maybe the pasuk just comes to teach us that it's a lav ve'efsulu and mifsal, but it's not possible. So after 3 kashas, I think Gemara proving to us that it can't be like Rav Ami learned. Says the Gemara, let's answer up the original kasha of Rav Preida Elaminalan. So you know where we learn it from. So finally, he says the Gemara. So lemaisa. What is the makar that a karban mincha has to be matzah, cannot be chametz? Kedetanya, like we learned in a brayso, matzah says the Torah, yachol mitzvah. I would have thought it's just a mitzvah. Tamalay mar tiyeb, says the pasuk. It has to be hakasav kava chayva. The pasuk creates a chiyuv with that words. Says the Gemara. Let's now move on to a new shayla, to dealing with that one extensively and finally coming out with the makar. Bayi minei Rav Preida. Smack in the middle of the Amlin of Gimel Amid Aleph. Miravam minayin the cholam menachos shani loishais bepaishrin umishamran shleach mitzu. How do we know all carbon menachos that are needed with paishrim, lukewarm water, and umishamran shleach mitzu, and they're guarded so they don't become chametz? Nilmada, we know that. We learned how mi pasach. Amar lei. So we're excuse me, that's a kasha. Nilmida mi pesach l'sim mishratas matzos. Is that makar? Is that the makar? Rapida asked Rav Hami. Amar lei. So responds Rav Hami. Begufa ksev matzah tiyeh. We don't need to learn that from Pesach. Why? Because by the carbon milcha itself says the pasuk matzah tiyeh ha chayeho, which we learn out from it. Tiyeh, keep it as it is. It has to remain the requisite amount, and it should not become further chametz. Ay boy, ip pikta le'akif. But we already used this a moment ago to show us that being matzah, not being chametz, is essential. So how could this pasuk also teach us that? How could it also teach us that you have to make sure it doesn't become chametz? Im Kain says the Gemara lichtav kra matzah mighty shmas mina tartif. And the extra, the fact that the pasuk speaks is verbose lashon teaches us both dinim. Amri le Rabbanan the Rav Breda. So the Rabbanan said to Rav Breda, Rabbi Ezra bar Breda, Rabbi Avtulis. Rabbi Ezra, the grandson of Avtulis, to Asir Rav Elazar ben Azariah, who is the 10th generation. From Lazar and Azariah to Asiri Lazar, who was the 10th generation from Ezra Hanavi. Kaya Bava was standing at the door. Amar. Shabrida says, well, what's this whole list? Michael why you tell me the whole lineage? Ibar Urian, who? Yai. If he's a Talmud Chacham, Givaldik. Ibar Urian. Obar Avun. Yai. If he's a Talmud Chacham. And Ubar Avon, and he has Yichos, then great. Vibar Avon is such an important line. Let's say he has Yichos. Veloy Bar Oryan, but he's not a Talmud Chacham. Eisha Tichla. Let a fire consume him, says the Gemara. So why are you telling me his Yichos? Yichos alone is nothing. As many have said, Yichos is a lot of zeros. You put a 1 in front of it, then Givaldik. But if you're not that Talmud Chacham, then what does it do for me? So Amrulay, they responded, Bar Urian who? Amrulay. So he said, okay, Lay of Lacy, let him come in and learn. Chazia du Akira Daite. Rabreda saw that he was Akira Daite. His das wasn't settled. The Mefarshim explained maybe he saw that his ichos wasn't having any value. Pasach v'Omer. Rabreda said, and he began to try to make him comfortable. Hashem you said to Hashem, you are my master. My gratitude is not to you. How do we learn out this pasuk? Amru Knesses Yisrael of Ne'akadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom Hachazek Li Taiva. Hashem, give me a Taiva. Shadaiticha Bailam. I made you great name known in this world. Amar La responds Hashem Taivasi Balalecha Ini Machazik. Says Hashem, my gratitude is not to you. Ini Machazik Taiva Elam. I don't hold the taiva only to whom? The Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov in the first white line. Tami, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shadani, Tchilu, Elam, they were the first ones to make me known in this world. Shenemar, Liktoshim, Asher, Ba'aretz, Hema, Vadir, Kol Chavsi, Bam. So when Rav Ezer heard this, Kiva de Shami de Kamer Adir, when he heard Rav Preda mention the word Adir, that they were Adirei Chavsi, Bam. Pasach v'amar yavoy adir v'yifer la'adirim. He said, let the adir, the mighty one, come and pay back for the adirim, ba'adirim, on behalf of the mighty. And what does that mean? Yavoy adir zeh Baruch Hu. T'chsev adir b'marav Hashem v'yifer la'adirim el Yisrael shenemar v'adir kofsei bam. May adirim elu amitzim t'chsev salei kaveres v'mayim adirim. Be'adirim elu mayim shem ekoles mayim rab adirim mishreyam. And from here we learn out what? Yavai. Yedid ben Yedid. Maybe we know this from a song. V'yivna, and he should build Yedid li Yedid, beloved to the beloved. V'chalka shall Yedid. Yeah, and with that, Yischapru ba Yedidim, which we darshan Yav Yedid zeh Shlomo HaMelech Tasiv, v'yeshach v'yanasan hanavi. V'yikashma Yedid ya, and he should come. Yikashma, excuse me, Yedid ya b'avor Hashem. Ben Yedid is whom? As we turn over to Negimel Mebeis. Ze Avraham, and I apologize that we were moments before blocking the Rashis. Okay, I'm sorry, we were on the wrong side of the page. Okay, we're back. Ben Yedid is whom? Ze Avram. This refers to Avram Avinu. That what? T'chsev ba, t'chsev ma, liyedidei bebeisi. V'yim the Yedid lebeis hamikdash, t'chsev. My Yedid mishkanais liyedid zakadosh baruch hu, t'chsev ashiri na, liyedidei bechalko sheyedid. Ze Binyamin, shem leBinyamin, Amar Yedid Hashem yishkon levetach, olav yischabru ba Yedidim is what? Eli Yisrael. So Sati Sedidus Nefesh, bekaf, oiveho. Says the Gemara. So what do we see? We see that Shlomo ben Avram should come and build the Beis Hamikdash, and a portion of Binyamin, and Klal Yisrael will get a kapara. That's the second memra that Rav Hezra learned. And the third memra, Yavai, we're about 8 lines down. The first one line is Oiveho. Yavai Taivi Kabal Taimi Taiva Taivim. Let the good come and receive good from good of those who are good. Yavai Taiv Zem Moshe. T'chsev v'tira Yisai Taiv Yisai was good. V'yikabel hu v'yikabel Taiv Zu Teir T'chsev Kilech T'tav Nisad Yilchem. Mi Taiv Zeh Baruch L'sev Taiv L'Shem L'chol Taiv L'kol. La Taivim Eli Yisrael L'sev V'ativ L'Shem La Taivim. Yavai Zeh v'yikabel Zais Mizeh La'am Zeh. Yavai Zeh Zeh Moshe T'chsev Ki Zeh Moshe Ish. V'yikabel Zais. So Atayra L'chsev Zais Atayra Shas HaMoshe. And when comes Moshe, what should he do? And he should take Mizeh from this Zakadosh Baruch Hu T'chsev Zekilivan Ve'yu La'am Zeh L'Yisrael Shnemar Am Zu Kanisa. So the third drasha of Rebbe Ezra. Again, we got involved in all of this because after Rebbe Ezra was allowed to come into Beis Medrash, he felt bad that his yichus didn't seem to hold weight. We quoted psukim to show him that there is some merit to it. And now Rebbe Ezra continues in Darshins. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yitzchak. Says Rav Yitzchak on this last drasha, on the second drasha, that said Mali Yedidi Bebeisi is referring to Avram Avinu. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yitzchak b'shash achar Beis Hamikdash Masakadosh Baruch Hu Avram Sha'im beBeis Hamikdash. When Hashem destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, Hashem found Avram Avinu standing in the Beis Hamikdash. So what exactly does this mean? So Taisus over here says the first to Yirmi Hanavi, but the Marsha says that it means that Avram Avinu, whatever it means, was standing and davening on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Amar Loi, Hashem says to him, Mali Yedidi Bebeisi, what's my Yedid doing in my house? Amar Loi, Aliske Beni, Balse, came for my children. Amar Loi, Benecha Chatu, your children sinned. Vegilu, and they have to go into exile. Amar Loi, Shema B'Shagi Chatu, maybe it was a mistake. Amar Loi, Asoisi Amazim Asa. So responds Hashem, she carried out her deliberate schemes. Amar Loi says Avram, Shema Mi'utal Chatu, maybe it was only a minority of Klal Yisrael. Amar Loi says Hashem, Arabim Mayilacha. Liskar bris mila. So says Avram Avinu. Amar Lo Hashem says Harabim. Hayilcha liskar bris mila. Avram said, what about the mila? What about the schosim of bris mila? Amar Lo Hashem says, Ubasar kodesh yavru me'alecha. Basar kodesh yavru me'alecha. That what? The basar kodesh should be removed, which shows us either it means, that they have not been mal, they didn't get a bris milah, or they try to conceal their bris milah. Amar Loi says Avram, Shema hamatana himtanto lehem ayachayze b'tshuva. Says Avram to Hashem, maybe wait and they'll do tshuva. Amar Loi ki ra'asechi oz ta'alaisi. When you do evil, then you will rejoice. Miyad. Right away, Avram said, puts his hands in his head, he's crying out. And he says to Hashem, Yotza Baskel Vamra comes out of Baskel and says, Loi, Zayis Ranan Yafebri, Yafebri Toyar Kara Hashem, Shemei. What does this pasuk mean? Ma Zayis Zed, just like this olive. Ma Zayis Zu Achrita V'Seifai, Af Yisrael, Acharita V'Seifan, so to Klal Yisrael, their destiny will be fulfilled at the end. Meaning, eventually, you're right, there's Chorban today, but eventually there will be Mashiach. The Gemara continues, Darshin, L'kol Hamola, Gedayla, 5 lines from the white line, it says, Eishalal V'ro Dil Yosef. What does this pasuk mean? Amar Rav Chanina, that the sounds of the great commotion, this fire, and its branches are broken. Amar Rav Chanina bar Papa. You know what these psukim mean? L'kol milehen shal meraglim. To the voice of the words of the meraglim, in this oyru de lo yasein shal Yisrael, the branches of Klal Yisrael were broken. The Amar Rav Chanina bar Papa continues the Gemara to Darshin, Davar Gadol, Tibur Meraglim B'Yisasham, a great matter. The Meraglim spoke at that moment, Ki Chazaku Mimenu, stronger than we. I'll take read. Don't read the pasuk that the Meraglim said, Mimenu, that are stronger than we. Ella Mimenu, with the extra dan and the nun, which they're referring to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kiviyachol, they're saying Shafilu Balabayis. And Yachol Otzi Kelav Misham, referring to that even Hashem cannot do it. Maskiv La Rav Chia on the second wide line, Rav Chanina, hi. La Kol Amayla Gedayla, the pasuk that said the sound of the great commotion, they call Mila Mi Bayile. The pasuk should have said the sound of the great word, Mila. Rather, Elam Arlaya Kadosh Baruch Hu Avram. So he reinterprets the story. Hashem says to Avram, Koilcha Shamati v'chamolti aleihem. I heard your voice, I'll take pity on the people. Ani amarti, says Hashem, I said, Sheis abdu me'arba malchios kolachas that they should go into goals for 4 kings. Kolachas v'achas kesharba malchios, each one the shear of the 4 kingdoms. So what Avram Avinu was told at the brisbane of Sarim, Hashta, but now that you have Avram Avinu are davening on behalf of Klal Yisrael on the 5th white line, Kol Chad V'Chada, the pasuk lay, each galus will only be its time, it won't add on to the others. V'ikadamri, and some say, Ani amarti b'zachar zeh, achshav v'vasachas. And we conclude, Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Lamnim Yisrael Zayis, Lam Chama Zayis, Ein Olav Noishrin, Lo Yimazcham Lo Yisek Yishamim. Just like the Zayis tree, the leaves do not fall off in the summer, the winter, Av Yisrael. They'll never be fully destroyed. That whereas the oil come out through crushing it, the Klal Yisrael Lamaisa will return to the right path only through suffering. Some incredible drasha, it's a little bit of a segue, and the next year we're going to get back to the dinam of Menachos b'siyata d'shmaya.